one sentence, an audience can decide whether they're going to stay with you or whether they're going to switch off. You name any one of the biggest influences of our age, and they've all had the power to change perceptions, and their greatest arsenal is their language. One of the greatest orators of recent times, I think people would agree, Barack Obama created pictures as he spoke, just as Nelson Mandela did before him, and just as Marie Curie did when she spoke about science. They're creating stories, pictures with their words. And of course, some people talk a lot about words.
I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words. But there's no better word than stupid. Right? There is none. There is none.
He has the best words. He has all the words, apparently. But how can we translate influence into our daily lives? And that word influence is a fascinating one because it comes from the Latin for flowing in. And in Roman times, it was believed that ethereal liquids would flow in and somehow determine human destiny, so the destiny of all of us. It's a really big thought. It was a big thought for them, and influence is a big deal. Numerous studies have shown that words have more power to persuade than any other thing that you might name. And these particular words are, in marketing terms at least, according to one poll, these. Now, none of these are particularly surprising. If I was to buy a face cream, for example, that said it would add radiance, and then saw another one that said it would instantly make you look radiant, I know which one I'd buy. But looking at this list, you'd probably be right to saying, well, yes, but, they've been used to exhaustion, surely, all these words. But it's really important to understand why they're persuasive. If you start slapping them on every bit of copy you create, of course, they're not going to have that much power. But lots of studies of the human brain have shown that our midbrain, the middle part of our brain, gets really fired up when we envision instant rewards, like that face cream that promises instant radiance. And it's our frontal cortex of the brain that's activated when we have to wait for something, which is a bit of a no-no in marketing terms. So to take an example from that list, because means very little on its own. There's a classic book on influence by Robert Cialdini, who carried out tests in which one person was asking another if they could use a photocopier. And the tests examined how the person asked, the person at the photocopier at the time, how it affected their willingness to let this other person cut into the queue, into line, and get in before them. So in the first test, the person simply said this, simple, please may I use the Xerox machine. In this scenario, around 60% of people allowed him to cut in and use the machine before them. In the next scenario, the request was slightly tweaked. Now, to say, please may I go first because I'm in a rush, is a pretty lousy excuse, let's face it. It's not the best reasons. All of us are in a rush most of the time. And yet, remember that 60% figure before, 94% of people allowed that person to cut in before them because they said they were in a rush. And if you think that's strange, look at this one. Of course, they want to make copies. That's why they're using a Xerox machine. That is no reason, no passable reason at all. And yet, 93% of people let that person cut in first. And according to Cialdini, it's a well-known principle of human behavior that if you give a reason for wanting to do something, people will respond so much better. And surprisingly, even giving the weakest of reasons, like that one, I need to make copies, will actually vastly improve your chances. And we can, of course, reflect this in marketing.